How to make money online buying and selling services. That's right, today we're going to be talking about drop servicing, which is a terminology that's really blowing up right now, and people have been asking, like, does this really work? Is it scalable? And today I'm going to be showing you exactly how I would go about it, and I'm going to be showing you exactly the tactical aspect of it so that you'll be able to do and implement these steps, which is basically a business model that is really blowing up right now. So let's talk about, first of all, what drop servicing is. Drop servicing is very similar to drop shipping, except that rather than selling a product, you're actually selling a service instead. So if you take a look at the traditional drop shipping, you'll see that drop shipping works like this. You open up a store, and whenever an order comes in, you go to the supplier, and the supplier is notified of the order. And once that happens, the supplier would then fulfill the request of this sale over to the customer. And the supplier will deal straight with the customer in terms of the fulfillment, the shipping, the warehousing, and you don't deal with the shipping and logistics of it all. Now, if you take a look at drop servicing is a very similar thing, except that it's not products, but it is actually services. Now, let's talk about the profitability and how you can actually make money doing this. Now, in order to make money doing this, again, we're gonna be going real tactical in this video. Okay, so in order to make this happen, but in a form of services, let's move over to my laptop right now, and I'm gonna be showing you the different platforms and the different tools that you require in order to make it happen. The first place that I'm going to, this website, Fiverr. Okay, so Fiverr together with Upwork, we're gonna take a look at these two sites first, are two great sites to look for freelancers and people who are willing to do jobs at a very inexpensive price. And on Fiverr, there are a lot of different skill sets that people offer, from doing graphic design, logos, illustration, cartoons and comics, game design, package and labeling. So this is all just in a design department. For digital marketing, there are all these different skill sets over here. Same thing for writing, video and animation. Now, the first thing that I want to be able to do is I want to be able to see if there is a demand for these different skill sets on Google, and if so, how high is the demand? Because this right now is the supply. So understand that right now, this is the supply of these services, and the services are available on Upwork and Fiverr, where people are supplying these services. So the next thing that I want to be able to see is if there is a demand for this, so that I can determine if this is a good market to go into. This is just simple economics 101. So in order to determine the demand based on this supply that's available, I want to be able to see how often these keywords are being searched for. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google Keyword Planner. I want to be able to discover new keywords, right? So this basically how often people are searching for this keyword. I'm going to change this to actually global. I want to be able to see what is the global demand for this certain keyword. We talked about the podcast cover art, right? So notice there's a lot of people putting out their service on Fiverr, and you can see roughly the demand is not bad. There's like over 1,000 orders for this guy here, over 100, 421. All I'm going to do is I'm going to Keyword Planner. I'm going to type in podcast cover, and I'm going to click on get results. And now notice that I can actually see the demand for how often people are searching for. So right now I can actually see that this podcast cover art, there's 1,900 people searching for it. And it cost me, if I were to bid on Google to rank on the first page on Google AdWords, $3.45. The competition is low, and all these are the different variations. Apple podcast logo, 1,600. iTunes podcast logo, 480. So I could be potentially bidding on all these different variations and cover this demand. So notice that it's super niche. It's really, really niche. By the way, this is just one, okay? This could be a book cover design. This could be for a brochure design. This could be for designing menus for restaurants. This could be like a lot of different things, right? It could be SEO for a local restaurant, right? So all I'm doing is I'm niching it down to one very specific thing. And let's just roll with this example. So right now, notice that we have covered both the demand and supply. We have seen what is the supply of this specific skill set on Fiverr. We have determined what the demand is for this specific keyword on Google to make sure that the site or the store that we want to build in order to capture this demand has sort of demand. So ideally, here's what we want. We want to have something that has got high demand but low in supply in order to create this store. Okay, now to create this store, super simple. There are a lot of different page builders and funnel builders out there. If you watch my other videos, you will know that the one that I love to use that's super simple is actually called ClickFunnels. Now, ClickFunnels, we have built a lot of different funnels. And one of the things that I am going to do is you can easily build this funnel in order to create a sales process that sells this service. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sales funnel. I'm going to call it my service funnel for, what did we decide on? Oh, the podcast cover, right? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to build the funnel. It's a super simple process. And while we're waiting for ClickFunnels to do their magic, by the way, all I'm going to do is, if you don't already have ClickFunnels, I'm going to leave a link down below so that you can get a 14-day trial, but also many different share funnels that you can utilize these different templates to help you get started. But ultimately, what I'm going to do right now is on ClickFunnels, I'm going to create a sales process. Now, without going through the boring stuff, which is like the tech, I've got other videos that explains all of that. All I'm really doing now is I am doing a very, very super simple sales process, which is basically this. I'm going to set up this page that sells this service. This service is for the podcast logo creation service. And this first step is basically the sales page. Now, the next thing I can think about is maybe I can add in some upsells. And a great way to look at what upsells would look like is, let's take a look at on Fiverr if there are upsells. I'm back in Fiverr, okay? I'm taking a look at the guy with the most, he's at 5.0 over 1,000 orders and designs look amazing. So it costs $10 for the basic package. Let's take a look at what his upsells are. Custom background featuring 2 to 4 podcast members if you want different faces. Okay, so let's say I take the basic, and if I continue, you can see that it's $10, super affordable. So I could have optional upsells. Okay, you can think of one. What makes a great upsell is always like the next thing they need. So I would think about an upsell, or even if I don't have one, this thing here could be, for example, like $100, which is still considered cheap for an amazing design. Let me just put it here, an optional upsell. Pause 1 second. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Peng Joon, this doesn't make sense. Why would somebody buy from me for $100 when somebody can get this podcast logo done on Fiverr or some other freelance site for $5 or $10? That doesn't make sense. Fair question. And the way to answer that is the same question as drop shipping, as well as how products are sold on Amazon or Alibaba or AliExpress. And the question I'd like you to think about is, why do people buy stuff on Amazon and pay Amazon pricing when potentially there could be the same product that is sold on AliExpress direct from China a whole lot cheaper? Same exact product. Why? Because many people assume that the market has perfect knowledge, meaning they know exactly which site has the cheapest product at every given point in time. But that's not how the market really works. Why do people search on Google and look for websites that sell this service? when they could get it on Fiverr? Well, number one, not everybody knows what Fiverr is. Number two, you're assuming again that people know what Upwork or Fiverr is, and you're assuming perfect knowledge. When most people, again, get something cheaper from AliExpress, why do people go to Amazon? Because most people don't have perfect knowledge. There's always somebody out there that's willing to sell it cheaper. What if right now the next thing you do is you utilize a page builder or a funnel builder like ClickFunnels that allows you to build these pages really easily. When you build these different pages, super simple, put in a logo, very simple design, utilize the templates that I give you, as well as what ClickFunnels give you. And once you claim this page builder, the next thing you do is you need to drive targeted traffic. So the Google Keyword Planner has already given you the demand for all these different keywords every single month. So for example, this keyword here called podcast cover. I'm just gonna put in podcast cover. You will notice that right now, so for example over here, there are no ads right now running for podcast cover. And I can see that if I would like to have my ad right on top, okay, you can see that this is just an additional tool that I use called Keywords Everywhere. 1,600 searches for this keyword a month cost me $1.59 to get a click to my website. Imagine this. So before I even begin, let's talk about the math involved in this. So if it cost me $1.59 to get a click, we want to estimate roughly what is the conversion of this page if we sold it at say $100. So let's say I started bidding on this keyword so that Google serves my website called awesomepodcastlogos.com. So let's say I built this funnel and I bid it on this keyword so that my website and my sales process ranked on the first page for the keyword podcast logo. So right now, I'm paying $1.59 for each visitor. So that means if I wanted 100 visitors to come to my website, it would cost me $159. Now I know from experience that a $100 product, it is possible to get a 3% conversion. So that means if I can get a 3% conversion on a $100 product, which isn't being overly optimistic, it's being conservative. And by the way, this is targeted people. This is not cold traffic based on interruption marketing on Facebook. This is literally people that's searching on Google, typing in podcast cover art. So there's that intention over there, and people are searching for this. Do you think it's fair that 3% of people would be interested in this $100 service? So now you set up this page, and if you could have a 3% conversion, you would have made $300 over here. So in other words, you have spent $159. At a 3% conversion, you would have made $300. Which, by the way, does not include the fact that you have to pay this guy on Fiverr, how much was it? $10 per gig. So you have 3 gigs, you now have to include the cost of, he's charging $30 per gig, so it's now $189. So now, this is simple arbitrage. This is spending $189 to acquire 3 customers and getting 3 sales, which is $300 in sales. Just think about this. How can you scale this? Imagine if you were to really own this category. And this is just one category, by the way. Podcast logos. And this is, by the way, just one keyword. What if you are targeting other keywords like iTunes podcast logo, which has got 480 searches? What if you were to target super niche ones like podcast logo ideas? Podcast artwork, over 1,000 searches. So then, what if you were to kind of target this thing, but remember, this does not include your upsell. Just think about like, what is the next thing they need? That's what makes a great upsell. The next thing they need could be, I don't know, this could be some sort of podcast launch service. Like literally, I would go on Upwork again, and I would take a look at the different podcast services. So the logo is one. Take a look at this. This is our studio was set up, launch, and scale a new podcast. But this guy is charging $2,005. So that's a little bit too much. A podcast launch. So that's literally how I got my idea. Perhaps that this guy here that says I will launch a podcast and help you grow your podcast for 50 bucks. There's this guy who's charging 500 for it, so there's not enough margins. But I will take a look at this guy, 5.0 rating, 5 ratings, okay? So I will want to be able to see what he does and what's included in here. Okay, but guess what? So all I'm doing here now is I'm just seeing, again, this upsell, what is the next thing they need? Could potentially be a podcast launch service. Now that you have your logo design, I know that the intention is to launch this podcast. If you brand this new company that you have as a company that helps people create this podcast, not just the logo, but launch them, optimize it, strategize on the keywords, and map out your first 10 podcast ideas, titles, transcription. I don't know. This could be a one-time launch of $1,000 for this service. Or it could be some sort of recurring that says, look, every month I'll help you optimize 5, 10 podcast titles, transcribe it, upload it to SoundCloud, embed it on your website, and this could be a $500 per month thing, right? So now, this is just arbitrage. Buy low, sell high, except that the difference is on a service rather than a product. Once you've built this up, how do you continue scaling this? Okay, so imagine if you want to brand and position this new business of yours as the authority, as the only logical choice in the world of podcasting. What could you do next? Again, remember, you're building a sales process. So your sales process could be the step before this. Before you send them into the podcast sales page, this could be a simple opt-in page where you give away something for free in exchange for their name and email so that you can build value. You could utilize before you send them into the podcast sales page. So for example, this could be a checklist. This could be a free report. This could be a template that says 7 common mistakes people make when it comes to podcasting. Enter your name and email below to download this free report. It could be the 17-point checklist in order to optimize your podcast every single time. In order to really blow up this sales process, to maximize every single lead that you are getting from Google. And this is where, again, if you do a good job here acquiring a customer, this is where you can continue. Maybe there could be a recurring after this. So now understand that over here, you're spending $189 and you're getting back $300, which is pretty decent for a $100 sale. But remember, the money could be here. What if 25% or 30% or 1/3 of every customer that buys this upgrade to your $1,000 offer? So if you have a 33% return, remember you have 3 sales over here, that means 1 person would upgrade, and if you do a good job here, this would add $1,000 to your bottom line. So that means now, in order to spend $189 to secure 3 customers, together with paying off your vendors and your suppliers, which is the service provider, you will be making $1,300. And remember, this doesn't end there. If you are doing a good job and they keep coming back to you, you could have a recurring. And this is literally how you can have a full-fledged agency that specializes in that one thing. Now again, remember, this one thing doesn't necessarily need to be a podcast logo. This could be an SEO agency for specializing local restaurants. This could be designing menus. Again, do your due diligence in here and see what's actually hot to notice the supply together with the demand. And that is how you build and grow and scale a profitable drop servicing business. Hey, this is Peng Joon here. Let me know in the comments below what your biggest takeaway is, what you liked from this video. And as always, I always want you to implement. Don't let this video to be one of those many videos you watched and did not do anything. Remember to claim the templates below. Start building this for yourself. And if you like videos like this, make sure you click on the subscribe button to be notified of future videos.